Hello everyone, I hope you guys are having a great day. So in today's video, I am going over my game in round 2 of a tournament that I play in my school. And this is the last game that I played in the tournament. Yes, I did withdraw the tournament after playing this game. I realized that I've learned enough. So since the tournament ended, I've been working on the mistakes that I made, as well as play style that I would prefer as black. So let's get started. So for this game, I am playing one of my good friends, Hayden Collins. Even though he is only 1800, but I know that he is much better than that. And he also plays really, really well against higher rated players. I've seen him having a really good position against 21, even 2200s. And knowing him, right, I was going to play the Sicilian. However, he plays the Smith-Morrow Gambit, in which even though I know what to play against it, it is likely going to be a draw. And of course, that is not what I want to happen. At that time, I decided I would like a win or loss. So, Hayden started with e4. And I decided to opt for the d6, going for the Pirc Defense. Recently, I've been having a lot of success with it online, and it seems to be the good alternative if I don't want to play the Sicilian, as everyone knows how to play against the Sicilian, especially Hayden. And then you go for d4. I play knight f6. He protect the pawn with knight c3, and I go for e5. So this is sort of like more of a Philidor now. If you take the pawn, it's still in the Pirc defense theory, but mostly I think Hayden knows, because I've talked to him about this. So he plays knight f3, which is the better move, and I play for knight bd7. Now it becomes a black lion's defense of the variation of the Philidor, which is not objectively best for black, but avoids any heavy Philidor theory. And here he plays bishop e2. So when he plays this, I kind of have a sense that he doesn't know the best move, even though he knows what to do against the setup. So knowing that, I just go with my typical setup, since it actually doesn't change. So bishop e7, he castle, I castle, and it goes to h3. Preventing any bishop g4 idea, I guess. But usually I don't really play that. So, but it's still a good move to make. I play c6, going for queen c7. He plays bishop e3, and here I think I messed up a little bit, and this is the start of where I'm starting to have a hard game. So I play queen c7 right away, in which it's not a bad move. This is a typical setup that I want to have. However, you can see on the arrow, I could have played b5. So why is b5 so important? Because it allows me to gain space and pressuring the queen side. But at the time, I somehow was kind of dumbfounded here, and I thought Hayden wouldn't do anything about it. But of course, after he sees queen c7, he figured, and then something took to his mind, and he played. And now, great. Now I have a much harder game to play. If he knew theory, I wouldn't be shocked. However, I had a chance to play b5, because usually the typical setup here is b5, and then he has to play a3 to prevent b4 and so I can take the pawn to e4. And now I play queen c7, and my position is great, and I have a great game ahead. However, that did not happen. So yeah, after a4, now I just have to go with whatever I know and develop everything and then figure things out. So I went rook e8, freeing the f8 square for bishop or the knight, depending. But at the time I was freeing up for the knight mostly. So I went for rook e1. I went knight f8 with the intention to reroute my knight to g6, giving my light bishop somewhere to go since I did not play b5. And note here, actually, b6 actually is not a good move due to d5. But maybe I should have played it at some point. So it went queen d2. I went with my plan. I went knight g6. And now I have 2 knights on the king side, so I'm not scared about any knight jumps or whatsoever. But I still have much less space than white. So I went for rook a1, bishop d7. Now, I want to go bishop e6 really badly here. But after bishop e6, white just go d5, and now it's not looking very good. The bishop on in the Pirc kind of in the Philidor black line defense, the bishop doesn't really want to be on e6 at all because it just gets kicked back, and d5 just comes with a free tempo, and then I would not like that. So I opt for bishop d7, although now my position looks very passive. And now the development is complete on both sides. So now my opponent, so now Hayden, went for some retreating moves, just maneuvering pieces, starting with bishop f1. I went for rook a8, centralizing the other rook, and queen d3. And honestly, here, I started running out of moves. This is probably the biggest downside of playing a somewhat passive opening and then forgot to take up space when there's a chance. And if you look at my queen side now, it's pretty bad. I cannot play c5 ever because of knight b5 and knight d5 ideas. But also, I don't have a center. I only have e5. So, since I can't do anything on the queen side, I decided I have to make something happen on the king side. Maybe I could sack something. Who knows? So here I went for just h6. See what Hayden is trying to do. And he went for d5. He finally strikes on the center. And I honestly didn't know what to do about it. Yeah, and as I said, I was waiting for him to attack first, and then maybe I will react. And note, again, if I go for c5, knight b5 is coming, and if I trade, it's actually not very good because after a6 b5, my pawn on a7 becomes super weak. And say after b6, now he can start having plans here, right? And plus, white now has a bishop pair, which at the moment is not an advantage. However, if white trades pieces, maybe the position will start open up. So in the game, I didn't like that. So I took on d5 instead, and try to open something up and see what happens. He took on d5, and here I thought I had something going on with e4, maybe some ideas. However, my bishops are so bad that I actually cannot do anything in the center. So here I simply just go a6, preventing the knight to go to b5. But then this creates a different weakness because this weakens b6, which later on would become a problem if the bishop or a knight, any piece get into b6, it will become a problem. So here, I think he realized, and he opts for knight d2. Now, I saw his plan, right? I saw that he wants to do something on the b6 square. However, I was underestimating what white wants to do because the idea that I saw was knight b3 and a5, followed by bishop b6. And then my queen side is completely locked down. There's no play. And I don't really have an attack on the king side. But I was having some initial calculation, and for some reason, I thought that knight h5 worked. So what did I do? I played knight h5, which apparently is a mistake. And then I completely missed knight c4. which is an even better way to put the bishop on b6 and also put the knight on b6. So here was my calculation why I look at knight b3, right? So I went knight a5, right? If knight b3, preparing a5, bishop b6, I actually have a tempo, or you could say, to go knight e to f4. And then maybe I could, and then I would try to go f5 and g5 and do something. However, knight c4, it's just up a tempo, it's just even a faster way to do it. So now I have to react right away, or I have to give an exchange, in which, of course, I don't want to, because that increases the chance for me to lose the game. So I went b5. I have to do something about it, or I'll have no space. Pawn takes b5, pawn takes b5. And note, bishop b6 doesn't work, because after bishop b6, I can take the knight with the queen. So now, after takes and bishop captures rook, I actually have 2 pieces for the rook. And this is definitely not bad at all. I still don't have a great position, but at least this position is fine. But of course, after I take on b5, he finds knight b6. And now, if you look at this knight, it's just sitting on my territory. It cannot be kicked out because it's protected by my bishop, and there's no effective way to attack this bishop. Maybe I could go bishop g5, but in the game I didn't really think about it. Because now, if you look at the queen side, my b5 pawn is hanging. It's being attacked by 3 pieces. So I have to do something about it, obviously. But I also realized that the game is already going wrong somehow, right? Because not only this pawn is weak, white has 2 pawns, more pawns on the queen side, and my bishop is getting aimed by this knight. So I can only try my best here. I don't really know what to do. White now has a very clear plan on the queen side, and I don't have any good way to stop it. And since I realized that I'm going to lose a pawn anyways, might as well, right? Just push the pawn, hoping something works, and knight b5. A very interesting move, but to me at least, I thought it was not the best move, but it's still a super strong move regardless. It's very straightforward, attacking my queen with tempo, and then just put more pieces on my territory. I at the time I thought that knight c8 would be an idea, with the intention of, after trading, he will put the other knight on b6, and then I just have no way to really stop it. But knight b5 is still super strong, and then I went queen b7. I was thinking of maybe capturing the knight, but again, I wasn't sure about anything, because one of these knights are going to be traded with my bishop anyways. So after queen b7, he just take the bishop, and then I take back with the queen. And here the plan comes in. Rook to a1. Since the a file is open, white now has a very clear plan to put a rook on the 7th rank, to stack the rooks on the a file and dominate the position. I, of course, definitely cannot allow that. So I went with rook to a8, neutralizing the file. But here, besides neutralizing the file, there's nothing else I'm doing. So Aiden just went with a simple route, queen to b3, just attacking my b4 pawn. And as I said earlier, this pawn is going to be lost sooner or later. And now I actually have no way to protect it. So I try queen b7, attacking a d5 pawn that is only defended by the queen. However, I realize that it is an absolutely terrible move. Why? Because after queen takes b4, I actually cannot take the d5 pawn. If I take the d5 pawn, sure, it seems like you're trading a pawn for a pawn. Boom! Knight c7 is a triple fork, and I resign. So now I am down a full pawn with no with no compensation, and my position is absolutely terrible. So, but I don't know. I had to just make something happen on the king side. That is my original plan, and I still have to go for it. Otherwise, I don't have a chance to win this game. So I went for f5 and c4. Just now we start pushing the pawn on the queen side, and then I realized, yep, funny enough, white can just ignore my attack, and I actually cannot do anything in this position. So by kind of desperate, I just go f4, and bishop d2, simply just dropping back. And now I went queen b6. This is kind of a sneaky, interesting move by me. And the threat, as you can see on the board, right, is to go bishop h4, attacking on f2, and maybe force at least a draw, which of course, by preference, I don't want it. However, if I'm in a completely losing position, so I have to try something, right? I rather, because losing this game will be pretty bad. You can say, if you can draw in a losing position, then it's not the worst. At least I was in a winning position. And here, surprisingly, he didn't see that. All right, so he went 3. And sure, wow, it doesn't lose the game by any means, but it is definitely not the best defense. And I don't think Hayden saw it either. I mean, sure, my attack isn't defendable by any means. Like, there are a lot of ways white can defend it. However, that was somewhat a useless queen move. So, like, it's basically allowing me to have an extra move to do something. So I went with my plan, and I went bishop h4. And I figured that he didn't see this, since he spent 11 minutes on this move trying to defend. And note, he cannot win rook e2 here, because I just simply take the pawn and take the rook, I'm sorry, and I win the game because I'm just up a full rook. I looked at queen f3, right? And that was probably the most sensible defense that I'm having with queen c3. However, then I have a very nice move of knight to g3. Using the pin on this diagonal, and the plan is to follow this up by e4. Because my f4 pawn is currently defended by a minor piece. So say if he does, I mean, I don't really care whatever he does, right? Unless he wants to trade the rooks, which then open up the a file, and maybe he can defend it with, I don't know, with bishop d3. However, I think now the position is probably much harder to play for white. Like, white was having an advantage maybe after this bishop d3. But here, that didn't happen. So he thought for 11 minutes, and then he decided to give me back the pawn with c5. Not only this gives back the pawn, this also opens up the a2 to g8 diagonal for the light square bishop. And the thing is, if I trade queens here, if I take queen, he's going to take. And after this, he had a free pass pawn, and I have a terrible position. There's not that much I can do. So say bishop c4 as planned, and now this pawn is going to roam down the board, and I have to spend all sorts of defense to try to defend this. And this endgame is definitely not favorable for me. So I took with the pawn instead. I want to keep queens on the board and hopefully see if something can happen. And I thought and after bishop c4 here, which is what c5 did, I thought for 10 minutes trying to figure out what to do. And now realize that my light square are really weak. I mean, look at all my light square over here, right? It's so weak. And white has a pass d pawn, which besides a promotion square, there's nothing I can do about these. It's just kind of too strong. However, I couldn't sit and do nothing because white just has too many potentially deadly threats. So I just have to do something, and at the end, I chose to trade the rook. Rook takes a1. Sure, I'm giving back the a file, but whatever. And rook takes a1. And my intention is to go e4, right? And I want to go e3 and maybe open up the position and hope that something would happen. As now, if you look at my board, all my minor pieces are over here trying to do something, you know. So I gotta use these 2 pawns that I'm trying to march forward. And then I completely missed this very critical move. At the time, it was funny for me, both me and Hayden, because I don't know. It's even though it was a serious game, and both of us are like pretty friendly to each other, so he made like this kind of funny move because he thought for 11 minutes. He was making sure that nothing happens, and he was thinking of going for a different sequence with the same idea. However, he said that it was too funny to not make, so he went with knight. And he came up with this move after 11 minutes. And it was funny at first. But as I look at it, the more I look at it, the more brilliant it is. And I was terrified. Obviously, I cannot take the knight because after I take the knight, d6, I win the queen. Simple as that. And I give 2 pieces and I lose the game. So that does not happen. And another threat that I missed is that if I move the rook, say I move to d8, rook to a6, skewering my queen and my knight. I was so terrified when I saw it. I was like, oh my god. I cannot believe that I missed it. It was such a beautiful move. And again, the knight actually will sit there forever as long as my king is on g8 because it comes with a check. But then lucky enough, as you can see at the arrow shot, I found a move. I don't know if it's the only move, as I didn't check with the engine, but it allows me to stop both threats. I think this should be the best move. I mean, if there wasn't that move, I would have resigned, like completely. There's nothing I can do. So, and after queen c2, now my rook doesn't have any good square on the e file. The only good, again, if you go rook e7, d6, I lose a rook, and this pawn is marching forward. So, and if I go rook e5, which is a move that I want to look at, there's bishop to c3, and now where does my rook go, right? And my rook goes to g5, you can actually just take on e4, and now, sure, my rook is looking at this pawn, but what is it? What is it exactly that I'm trying to do? And I couldn't figure it out during the game. And I was so lost. I was in my mind, it was so lost that I couldn't even do anything. So I went for rook b8 instead. Trying to counterattack with the b2 pawn. That is, I have 3 attackers here, and most likely he will not be able to defend it. Now, if he wants, sure, he can defend it with rook b1, but that means that he gives some room for e3. But he didn't do that, so he went for queen takes e4, and after queen takes on b2, rook to d1. Okay, I'm sorry. D6 check. I'm sorry. This is completely lost. I turned on the engine for like a moment here, and it showed us is almost +5. And I opted to go for the better king move, which is king h8. I didn't go for king h7 here because after king h7, then my king is attached to the knight on g6. And at the time, I thought after the rook moves, bishop d3 will be unstoppable. So I say rook d1. And I didn't know at the time how to stop this. But I didn't really see queen e5. Like, I could have started with 2 ways. One is queen d4, One is queen e5, which both are fine to just stop the threat. However, white just can just have a winning endgame, or white just not trade. White just doesn't trade the queens. But here, even then, white is just winning because white has a pass pawn and a bishop pair to play around. But yeah, so I opted for king h8 and hitting one rook d1, moving the rook away, and also protecting the bishop. And now the intention of playing king h8 is to play knight e5. That's why I don't want to pin the knight, because again, if I went king h7 after here, if I don't see these two moves that I make any move, I don't know, like I don't even know, like rook d8, bishop d3. This is deadly. Like I lose this knight, I lose this knight too. So yeah, after rook d1, I went knight e5, and now another problem arises. He played bishop e2, and then now my knight on h5 is also trapped. So then I have to sack another pawn with f3. He took with the bishop. I took the bishop with check, and queen takes f3. And here, after all that, I sack a pawn so I can defend it with queen e5. And now this is a completely lost position. There's nothing I can do. And after bishop to e3, white just started to push. Now the rook is now supporting the pawn, and the pawn is already on the 6th rank. So now this is just marching forward, and still my knight is trapped. My poor little knight is still trapped. And note here, I actually cannot go bishop d8 because of queen f8 threats and king h7, and this position is not very playable. So I didn't do that. Like maybe knight e8 ideas and all that stuff, or just queen f7. And then now my rook is losing all the connections here, and I don't know what to do. So I went for rook b3, trying to pin the bishop and the queen. And he just opted for g4 as he thought my knight was trapped. And then I just find a funny sequence that saves the knight basically, but didn't save the game anyway. Still, which is knight g3. So why is this good? Because of what happens in the game. After queen takes, pawn takes, and rook takes bishop. Well, okay, it's an equal trade. I'll take it, I guess, right? But here's again, it's a completely lost endgame because this pawn is on d6 and white has a knight. So here I'm attacking g3. However, it actually doesn't make a big difference. So king f2, simply defending the pawn and attacking the rook. And after, I don't know, a few moves, white push forward here. I'm just desperately defending. Now, white is just up to clean pawns, and there's nothing I can do about it. So after all these moves, I resign. This is just completely lost, and next move he's gonna promote, and I will lose a piece. And there's 30% not 30%. There's 30 seconds increment. So at the time I had 5 minutes, he has 2 minutes, but since it's a 30 seconds increment, there's no real time trouble. And I know he's fast enough, so I mean, my friend played well, right? He deserved the win that he got. And after this round, I withdrew from the tournament, which turned out I don't think that was a bad decision, since I learned all what I needed to learn. So I would say what I learned from this tournament with a draw and a loss. The draw that I had is because one part is I messed up the end game for some reason. Like I had an advantage, I earned it, because my opponent blundered, right? But then the main part is the opening, where I just didn't really prepare well. So that was another bad thing on my part. Another thing is from this game is I realized that, you know, the Black Lion defense, the sort of the Pirc defense, it's not that good at all in terms of like super longer time controls. I mean, here again, this game I had a chance to equalize out of the opening, or at least like being not so bad, not allowing white to be so much better. But if I play someone who knows theory, because I learned the theory line, like I learned when I was learning theory of the Pirc defense of what I was playing, it was really uncomfortable to play, and I knew that. However, I didn't play this opening in classical that much, and at first I thought I was doing well. However, it didn't really work out. So, by the time you guys see this video, I would be on my way to US Amateurs 2024, which is a very big tournament in New Jersey, and in which here I will be attempting to fix my mistake. So when I finish my games, I think that I should have some good openings that I am happy about when I play, and not losing so badly. So yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.